Welcome, excuse me, welcome back to episode 5 of Kerbal Space Program, and we are going to be doing communication satellites and maybe even space station this episode, or at least the first kind of space station. If we go into mission control, now you can see there's a few missions here that might actually be good. Build a new orbital station around Minmus, that looks kind of attractive. But there is one around KERBAL first, and that is much easier. Well, yeah, I suppose. Oh, supporting at least 10 KERBALs. Not too happy with that. I'd rather have a 5 mission. Yeah. That looks... Docking port, generate power, and an antenna. It needs to be an orbit of Minmus. I think... Did I take the one already? There may be one for the Mun as well. No, okay, let's go for the Minmus one. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to show you a comm satellite, because it's worthwhile doing at this point. So if we load ComSat Mark 1, I think, yeah, that will do. Let's show you, just in case I haven't done this already, what this consists of. We've got an RA2 relay antenna. It's a 2 gig antenna, it's quite a useful one. With an Octo 2 probe underneath, you can choose whatever probe you like there with a structural, octagonal structural element below it, strut. A couple of kind of like the normal version of the photovoltaic panels, the solar panels. That's just in case I have problems expanding these, and these are the 3x2s. So if we undo those, you'll see those are the actual main ones we want in use, but just in case I've put an extra couple of redundant ones on. 5 rechargeable battery packs, a couple of antennas for when we're low in the atmosphere, or if we're heading out somewhere, we want those. It's symmetric just so I don't put any torque on the actual rocket. I'm not even sure if these are physics modelled. Doesn't matter too much anyway. We've got a reaction wheel because the Octo 2 doesn't have one, but if you have one of the other probes, one of the larger ones, that will have a reaction wheel. And below that, a couple of Oscar B fuel tanks and a spark engine. And the spark is kind of a very, very nice small engine. And then we have the rocket itself, which, if we just put back, is pretty much a very cheap rocket. It's 15,000 to launch a ComSat. A couple of 800 fuel tanks, a swivel at the bottom, Terrier in the middle, and that will get us where we need to go. So let's just launch one. I don't need to worry too much about... In fact, let's just combine those because I don't need to keep those separate. We're not going to worry too much about getting the launch time right, because in KSP things are almost never able to be launched straight into the exact position in orbit that you want. It just doesn't happen. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. So off we go. I don't know why I enabled RCS, because we don't really have any RCS. I don't think. Well, yes, no, we don't have any RCS. We just have reaction wheels. And this is going to take a little bit of time to take off, but I'm going to get up into orbit, and I'll see you there. Alright, so now we're in orbit, and I have a maneuver set to get us to Minmus. Now, this is a free return maneuver, but it doesn't matter too much, because that's not what we're actually going to do. Because I don't actually want an intercept with Minmus, even though I've set a maneuver up. What I want to do is to get the right point in the orbit, so that I know where the intercept with Minmus is, and it's right about here. So if I take this and I rotate it a little bit, we're going to arrive after Minmus. And that's more about what I want. Because this is a ComSat, let's just zoom in for a second while I just click off this. If I go to here and show all the network, you'll see I've put a few other ComSats in orbits, and this is an untidy triangle, but don't worry about it too much. The idea is there's a ComSat here, 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 and ahead of Minmus. So if I'm going to put one behind, that should help me if I need to communicate with anything on the far side of Minmus. Make sense? Hopefully so. To To get something into an orbit like this is straightforward, as you've already seen before. The only thing I will say is make sure you don't try and do a normal, efficient, flat orbit. Instead, you will probably want to do a... there's no way that burn is 3 seconds. You will want to do a high pitch, because the first, at least for the first one, because you don't have any other ground stations if you're following my settings. No, the ground stations means no communications. And yeah, so if you go over the horizon on a flat orbit, you will lose communications, and that will be a bad day for you. So we're roughly aligned. Let's just fast forward a little bit until we get closer. I'm going to assume it's going to be something like a minute burn. Whether I've got enough fuel in this stage is debatable, but the idea with the spark engine, at least, let's just get down to a minute or so. The idea with the spark engine is that once this stage, this is still the Terrier stage, by the way, we've lost the first stage, but this is the second one, the injection stage, if you like, we can burn. As long as we, that's the moon. We don't want to actually hit the moon, that's the important point here. Make sure I don't actually do that. No, we don't have an encounter, that's good. So let's just keep burning. Should get us most of the way through this burn. It's about to give out though. Stage. And fire up the teeny engine, which actually is still producing a huge amount of thrust. Because, well, it's not the amount of thrust, it's more that this is much lighter than carting the whole rocket up here. So yeah, we just have to be quite straightforward with this. That'll do. Yep, and the camera changes. So we're on our way out now. And at the mid-course, kind of when we get out of here somewhere, because we're currently on an escape trajectory, maybe I should actually just fire retrograde a little bit so we're not on an escape trajectory. Yeah, that'll do. I think. And just up a little bit more. What we're basically doing is creating an apoapsis up there that is the same orbit as Minmus. So let's time warp all the way out there now. Can't auto warp so far, really. Probably because it's oh no. I do have a moon encounter, but it shouldn't actually matter, he says confidently. Let's head out and we'll see. So we should change sphere of influence, but because it's so minor a change, I'm hopeful this isn't going to be too much of an issue. There it is. Let's leave you behind. And we're back out. That's mainly why we had the problem with it going far too far. I didn't want any influence of the moon. Alright, so we're going to need to adjust things a little bit, clearly. That has actually affected us, so let's just create a maneuver somewhere around here, and let's see. Sometimes it has problems with maneuvers or placing them. Come on. That's definitely something they need to work on. Alright, so what can we do with this? We can raise it up for very little cost. You know, 11 meters per second only. Raise us up to the same orbit. Same orbital track, that is. And then I don't think we need to do much more. Yeah, I need to bring that in. And we get an encounter. Not something I wanted. So let's bring it in. So we don't have an encounter. And then I'll just raise everything once we get out there. So, simple and straightforward when I've not got it set to prograde hold. And we need to move forward to right about there. Oh, now you let me click on it. Fine. Be like that. As you can see, our solar panels are out, so we don't have to deal with any power issues, hopefully. Let's have a look. No, our electric charge is just fine. And we should be coming up to it very shortly. Let's just time up a bit more. Warp 2 isn't great when it's this far out in the orbital track and the orbital thing, because we're going quite slowly, so it shouldn't actually matter too much if we do it right about now. Yeah. There we go. It's only, you know, tiny amount that we need to change it by. There we go. So now we want to maneuver out here, and we want to maybe roughly circularize, and you'll see again it's 233 meters per second, but that is a relatively small amount to get us all the way out here. And yeah, so let's warp all the way out. In comes Minmus, which we want to miss. Clearly we want to miss. Here we go. Let's just point ourselves this a ways, and can we burn now? Yeah, why not? Burn. Now, if you leave it like this, there will be a problem in that you will probably eventually get an encounter, which is not what I wanted. That's definitely not what I wanted. But I can adjust later. That's probably something like a radial burn of some kind. Whoops, wrong way. Not that way. That way. And then we want to put it retrograde a little bit. And we can bring that orbit in. You see that purple twitch? That was an encounter. So now we are actually going faster than Minmus, and it's behind us. I have to say, that's not exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be going slower. I want to be about here. So what I'm probably going to have to do is I'll readjust this off camera. So I'm going to do this so that I do a maneuver out here, and then maybe I just change this side to be larger, and then just the same way that you would correct comsats around Kerbal. So that's a communication satellite setup. I don't have to worry about it too much anymore. I will go and correct that off camera, but it's very straightforward, and this particular thing has loads of fuel left. There's no problem at all. So what are we going to get on with? Well, we should actually start launching a space station, and that is where we come to the next part of this. Our missions are building an orbital station around Minmus, okay, plank flag on Minmus, science data from space around Minmus. Now, let's look at a design for that. Not that one. Science lab. Hugely more expensive, 120,000. It's 10 times more expensive than those comsats. And let's just move the whole thing up a bit so the stuff isn't intersecting the ground. Much larger, as you can see. There is mainsail, mainsail, mainsail. And they are asparagus stage into the main thing, so these will drop off when they're empty, but this will remain full because they're piping into the center. That's what asparagus staging is. And in here we have a poodle, which is one of the uprated, kind of like a large version of the terrier. And then we have our main, let's just take this off, that's the rocket gone. We have our main, well, this is a lander, but it will serve perfectly well as a space station as well. So if we zoom in, we have the lander segment. This, it's a whoa, connect, there you go. It's a Rocket Max fuel tank with a terrier on the back. Remember, it's going to Minmus, so you don't really need all that much thrust. No, well, compared to your mass anyway. Obviously the landing struts, I had a terrible time last episode with those. I have done it successfully since then off camera, which is just about right for me. Yeah, you know, can't do it on camera. Lights, of course, so we can see this when we're in the night side. We have batteries on the outside, 8 of them, 4 on either side, and 2 more inside the service bay, which we'll get to. Solar panels, more solar panels. The problem with science labs when they're running is they use a huge amount of electricity, and having limited solar panels, in fact, I almost want to say, I think I will almost actually get another set and put it down here. That wouldn't be what I would do for a lander. Whoops, it helps if you're in symmetry mode. Great. There we go. That's where the no, that's where the ladder is. Let's put it. Let's put them there instead. Yeah, so as I was saying, the science lab uses a huge amount of electricity, so that's something that you need to be quite careful about, because you're going to go, you're going to get eclipsed by places. You know, Kerbal itself, Minmus obviously is quite small, but at the same time you need to have a lot of power on it. Again, I haven't worked this out. I'm just eyeballing it. RCS fuel tank, quite important, because that's the only real way we're going to maneuver this beast. Do remember when you put the RCS on, where's the RCS? There they are. You want that roughly centre of mass, and because I've made some changes now, yeah, you see the centre of mass has changed, and that will change as well as this fuel tank empties out. The centre of mass is going to move upwards, so we're going to want to take these and make sure, I'm going to press the right key, that they're roughly at the centre of mass for manoeuvring. Or you can put like 2 sets on either side of the centre of mass, and that would help if it comes to it. And then we've got the service bay. Inside there we have barometer, thermometer, Science Junior, 2 goo container units just to keep it symmetrical. The same thing with these, symmetrical, and some more rechargeable batteries. Above that we have a cupola, that's or cupola, depending on how you pronounce that. That's actually generally needed because this will hold, in fact, how many will this hold? Is this big enough? It may not be big enough, you know. Crew. No, it's not. I'm gonna need something else. I'm gonna need a hitchhiker capsule, maybe? And I hope that this will actually send it up. Mark II lander can, no. Do I have the hitchhiker module? Mind you, the lander can will actually support 2 people. So that's fine. Yeah, I've only got the Mark I lander can, the command pod. And yes, I could shove them a command pod on top, but I want the cupola there, so that should actually support 5 people now. Yeah. But we're just going to put scientists on it. And in fact, we want them in the mobile processing lab. I don't necessarily need one to steer because I've got a command probe, which we're going to come to. Yeah, let's just leave it like that. So, what do we got up here? Above the cupola, we have a inline stabilizer. Reaction wheel, basically. And you can just about see it. In there, there's an Octo 2, so that'll let us fly this thing without any pilot, and the docking port, which is one of the mission requirements. So, well, how large is that? It is... where's the weight? 2.6 tons. Interesting. And yes, it's going to need adjusting now because... all of this is now needing a larger fairing. There we go. That looks awfully large. I'm going to try and fly it anyway. What's the worst that could happen? Things are going to go badly, aren't they? Yes, they are. Alright, so... there we go. Is everything set up correctly? It looks like it is. Go! So it takes off, so that's a good start. I've made these before without mods, and in fact there is actually a mod on now. You may have seen it in the vehicle assembly building. Kerbal Engineer has a kind of pre-release version, if you like, for this, so I can actually work out delta V's. I just forgot to because I'm so used to having not having it. Never mind. Let's just tilt ourselves over. And this is going to take a little bit of time to get into orbit, so just so you don't have to sit through this going all the way up, let's cut and hopefully I'll see you in orbit. We'll see. So here we are, we're up in orbit. And, well, we're not in orbit yet, we're just circularizing. Now, last time I test flew this without those extra additions, and I had a lot of fuel left. But whether it's enough to actually get us all the way, that's another thing entirely. We should certainly be able to get into orbit of Kerbin, and it depends whether we can get all the way out to Minmus. Let's give it a try. I'm going to have to go above the horizon a little bit here, because we're now past. This is quite sluggish by comparison, but you'll see our Apo is going to move ahead of us now because I'm aiming upwards. That's sort of what we want. We want to try and stay either at the Apo when we're this late in the orbit, or close enough to it that we can circularize. If you right click, it just holds, so you can see what's going on there. We are nearly don't want it to change too much in altitude, so just try and balance it a little bit. So there we go. And at some point you will lose it because you're about to circularize. So around it goes. So 81, 102, that is by far good enough. So at this point you should probably do all the solar panels, and it's at this point I forget I've not really expanded the main base into into allowing me to have action groups. So I start clicking on things like MAD to bring out the solar panels. And it tends to look quite lopsided. I could put these in the abort group, that would work perfectly fine as well. There are two more here, 1 and 2, and there are two more I put on the bottom. Now at this point I don't really have any more solar panels that are larger. There is the much larger ones which you can fly on these, but they will take a lot of weight and therefore, well, a lot of mass, and therefore your rocket will need to be larger to cope with that. So I'm going to try and cope with these just for now, and we'll see how well or how badly it does. So as usual, let's just find where Minmus is. There you are. Set that as the target. And let's, we're coming up to the ascending node, so if we change ourselves to point anti-normal, nothing happens because I haven't turned on the RCS. And you can see now just what the problem is with this huge rocket stage. It got us all the way up here and it still has fuel. I don't want to let it go because it could actually do a fair amount of work for us. At least this orbital shift, which we're now going to come up to. Let's set up the maneuver. It's 6 degrees, but that shouldn't... is that the normal? No, it's anti-normal, isn't it? So we're going to go this way. Till we roughly match up. That's close. That's close. A bit more. Yeah. And as you'll see, the maneuver node has now come up to our anti-normal. So you don't necessarily need the maneuver node if you've got everything, you know, if you know what rules to use. So if you're coming up to the anti-normal when you've got something targeted, just remember the A in anti-normal, the A in ascending node to anti-normal. D is obviously normal, and that's harder to remember. So you don't necessarily need maneuver nodes for that, you can do it without. And if we go around a little bit more, it says estimated burn 9 seconds, But we're about to run out of fuel. We'll see how much fuel this gives us. Do we have enough? Maybe? Looks like it. And that's probably about as close as we can get. Now we're really out of fuel at this point, so I'm almost of the opinion let's just get rid of that stage. Activate the next engine. And once we're a bit farther away, we'll then lose that. So I'm now going to set up a maneuver to get us to Minmus. Let's get that set up and me move things around a little bit. And here we are ready for the maneuver. Our previous stage, our debris, is over there. Hopefully we're not going to hit that. But we'll see. And my luck, it just kind of happens. We are going to get pretty close to Minmus. At least enough for us to then do a mid-course plane change. Not plane change, a mid-course adjustment. And we should probably do that shortly. I'm just going to wait for the clock to tick down a little bit more. We'll want 18 seconds or so. Let's go. Thankfully, that should miss us. And we'll see just how much fuel we're going to use at this stage. Remember, we still have all of the Terrier's fuel, which is up in here, so we shouldn't have any problem doing this now. The main problem is getting into orbit in the first place. That's by far the problem, and there we say goodbye to our to our first stage. I really should clean that up somehow. Yes, we can just delete out of the space center, but that's not terribly realistic. I suppose you could argue that there's a self-destruct device in every one of them, but that would just create more problems. Because thousands and thousands of tiny bits of stuff in orbit would be very, very bad. Does that look lopsided? Does that just mean... No, it's... Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We're using up a lot of our fuel, mind you. Passengers are loving it. Galaxy is crazy. We've already got 1 star. These had 0 on the ground, but because now we've got the level up as part of the native game, the level up while in flight, yeah, you can get extra XP to the scientists, which will make them work better in the actual lab. In fact, that's a good point, actually. While we're still near Kerbin, I guess we could do this, grab some pressure data, send it into the lab. Same thing with temperature and with the materials bay. And we can't do a crew report, I don't think, because yeah, we don't have the manual capsule. Will the probe give us a crew report, however? No. That will be the reason for actually having that third Kerbal up there, but we can always go EVA if we need to in the future for a crew report. And let's just close that back up. So I should explain how the labs work. You basically can transfer data into them. It's 56 at the moment, and they will process it at a rate of a certain amount per day into science, up to 500. And they can also clean the experiments, which is basically a reset. So you don't need to get out to actually get rid of your experimental data and then reset them ready for the next amount. And we're coming up on the end of our maneuver, so I should probably concentrate a little bit. That's never stopped me before, but here we come. 33, 20, 10, and yeah, we missed. That is fine, however, we can just go retro. But because we've got RCS on, remember that this will change your orbit. So it shouldn't matter too much right now. In fact, the reason why it's changed is we've again... This is so annoying. I waited extra orbits so to make sure that didn't happen, and it still happened. The moon's in the wrong position at the moment. It's almost lined up with Minmus, so you end up having a few problems. Let's just use some of our... It's going to boost us basically because we're coming in behind it. We're rotating this way, so we're going to need to change a few things. It is okay, we can correct for it, it's just, and we should get our encounter, or we can get our encounter once I get past the moon, maybe. Yeah. I'm going to go and do that off camera, do a few corrections, hopefully so we can get our encounter with Minmus. So I've just adjusted it in a bit in the normal direction, a bit in the retrograde direction. It got us to this side of Minmus, which is where we want. We do have want a bit more in the normal direction. In fact, no, we can go anti-normal. We can go... yeah, if we come into under the South Pole. What I'm looking for is a polar orbit. So while this is okay, we could just equally just circularize. We can, however, get more science by going polar, because this whole thing is spinning. The moon is spinning. So as we pass over each of the biomes, we'll get an opportunity to do more in the way of science. And we want to go retro, I think. Yeah, I've turned off RCS because at this point we're all the way out here on the way out to Minmus, and any slight change with RCS is going to throw things off as well. Whoops, that's the wrong direction. Of course, it's prograde. Gotta wait for it to rotate through things. It is a bit faster rotating now. We've lost that first stage, and here we go, coming up on the node. And if we can just get underneath, that'll do. Close enough. And now we can actually just warp here. We don't need anything else. We can set up a maneuver node, but there's not much point. We can actually just eyeball this. Just retrograde. What I'm probably going to do, this is 23k. That should be enough to get us low orbit stuff. If I just take it so that we go out high over the other pole, here we come. And prograde, no, I want retrograde, of course. Yeah, so we want to go high over the other pole so we can collect high science as well as low science. And we can just dump everything into the lab. That's more than good. Okay, so let's just warp to, I don't know, here. Don't have to be really exact now, so we can turn RCS back on once we come out of time warp. And just close our orbit. In fact, we can go up to full speed. Now, if we look at our missions, put your station in orbit of Minmus, which is about to happen. $160k, I'm not sure if that's high enough, but yeah, we just have to maintain stability for 10 seconds. Oh, thereabouts, which means not moving, basically. There we go. We've got the mission complete. And that's 242,000. Now it did take up, mind you, that 120 odd thousand to actually launch this, so we didn't get a huge amount of profit, but we can then start doing, well, I guess you could call it science spam, but this is kind of like a, nice version of it. So we observe the materials bay. How much science do we get for that? 625 science. Sorry, 625 data. So how much room do we have? Let's just lock that in place. We have 181 out of 750, so we should have plenty of room to add all of these. It'll just turn into like 750 science once processed, but we want to keep going and keep on adding stuff. Well, there's my other experiments. There we go. Log pressure data. Log temperature. I'm up to 331 data out of 750 now. I don't have a crew report here, so I guess that's one reason for including an extra curb in. I suppose you could save the weight of the Octo and put a poor pilot in who has to stay up here with the scientists. But yeah, we don't really mind too much. In fact, what we can now do... Yeah, if I warp here... We haven't started the science lab up yet. What I'm going to do is be a little bit conscientious, and let's just change to retrograde, and we're going to aim to hit the planet, and we're going to dump our stage and then switch back again so that we don't hit the planet, which is obviously what we want. There we go. So in goes our periapsis. That should be enough for things to collide. Change back out. Stage. And now we're going to want to move away. So if we use the... Oh, yeah, I can turn on the lights. That might help. If I just use the RCS just to move us aside a little bit, because we're going to be facing the opposite direction and burning, and we don't want to, just head straight into our injector stage. No, we're nowhere near. Yeah, and we're now pointing prograde. So if we fire our engines, we're clear. Do I have our stage engines? No, I haven't. Stage. There we go. And if we get this side down to, I don't know, maybe 12k, that'll certainly get us close to Minmus. Now, there's no reason now. This is a lander design, and Minmus doesn't actually use much gravity. 12k? 12k. It doesn't actually have much gravity, so we could use this as a lander design and just extend these landing gears. I do like that new sound. I'm not sure why we'd hear that while I was in space, but yeah, there's something else. We'd hear it through the hull of the craft or something. Yeah, something useful. So this is now pretty much done. We can leave it here, or we can drop it onto the surface. And dropping it on the surface would mean we could add more data to the science lab, but it's not essential. We can always keep it here and decide what to do with it later, as I'm sure you'll do in your missions. That's the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to leave comments below if you've got any suggestions for what I should do with it, so that I'll not smash it into Minmus and lose solar panels and all kinds of stuff like last time. The only thing left to do really with it is to turn on the bay. And do we have enough electric charge? It is actually operational. It is working. And our electric charge is holding. Of course, that may change when we go around the backside of the planet, the moon, but for now, that is actually... I'm pretty happy with that. What do you guys think? If you like this video, feel free to like, and if you want to see more of these, or you haven't seen them before and I should turn that off, feel free to subscribe or not. It's entirely up to you. Follow me on Twitter @GreyDuster if you want to get notifications that way. Otherwise, we'll see you next episode. Thanks for watching.